Rawah Sasquatch scrapes RV with elk antler. RMSO Media asks, have you ever seen a Bigfoot carrying or dragging anything? Boone writes RMSO. Saw one face to face through the window of an overhead RV sleeping cabin. Carrying an elk. Partial head torso over its shoulder. The animal's horns scratching against the glass, and it woke us up. The sleep area above the cabin was 9 to 10 feet above the ground. The creature lost its composure or cool when we turned the lights on and closed the curtains. All heck broke loose. The 35-foot RV almost tipped on its side from the violent shaking. First sighting here was 1984. Last sighting I had was 2000, both Colorado high country. RMSO asks, the time you saw it carrying the elk, what part of Colorado and how tall and wide would you estimate the Bigfoot was? Boone continues. It was before midnight, but late. I'm guessing it was 8 to 9 feet tall, maybe more. Definitely wide like shoulders, around 4 feet across, but dark and hard to tell, but the elk horns and elk body covered so much area of what my brother and I could see. Definitely saw the creature's face, clear as can be. Curious and scared-looking face, wide open eyes. It was startled and upset. This particular incident was in Gould, Colorado, Rawah Forest. One thing I'd like to share is the sound it made when it seemed to be pushing, trying to tip the RV. It was almost like a donkey, but backwards, like heave-hoing, ha-hee. Strange, loud, and my family, even armed, refused to step outside during probably 5 long minutes of chaos. 6 people were in the RV. About 40 yards from us were friends in a tent, and we were terrified for them for sure. About 2 hours into the night, my father went to check on them and woke them. They slept through the whole ordeal. Lastly, the Bigfoot? My brother and I talked about it all through the 80s. Its face seemed to be some kind of distortion or maybe disabled, like maybe horrible damage or deformed. We always joked when we watched Goonies, a face like Stoth, sort of, but strangely sad, maybe gigantism that only affected part of it. Definitely it changed my entire family and usual camping routine. Just as a thought, at first sight my brother was convinced it was a huge horned man outside the window. RMSO responds, I would imagine an illness or injury could have caused the distortion on its face. Unfortunately, they have to be tough for that sort of thing and hopefully survive things like that throughout their lives. Reminds me of an article we put out recently about an orangutan with a serious face wound that may have been caused in a scuffle with another rival male. The wound could have been lethal or disfiguring, but this orangutan made its own ointment to fight the infection and help heal itself. There has been a history of Bigfoot-related incidences and encounters in the same area your family and friends had yours. For example, in the summer of 1971, a PH student, whom now is a doctor, along with 2 other men, observed a trackway of giant Bigfoot prints in the Rawah wilderness. The medical student reported this incident to the BFRO on report number 513, stating, they were big, oh man, it was the freakiest thing, they were huge. Half again as big as the biggest human footprint. I'm not sure if I was cognizant of Bigfoot at the time. I didn't measure them, and I didn't examine it for the hill strike and push off. They were just big-ass footprints. He also estimated that he found the tracks 8 miles from their entry into the wilderness. People say there is no such thing as Bigfoot. I know what I saw. I didn't get to be a physician by being an idiot. He also reported the tracks looked exactly like a human's, except 1.5 times larger, and the stride was also at least 4 feet longer than a human's. Definitely not a bear. They proceeded across several small remaining snow patches on the mountainside meadow. There were about a dozen or more clear footprints. I saw none on the ground between the snow. The ground was firm and damp. I saw no other suggestive evidence, but was not searching for any. I was scared shitless and wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. I assume these prints I saw were not human. I have no particular interest in the existence of the Sasquatch, but as a scientist, I am curious. Having seen these prints with my own eyes, I definitely believe it's possible. There were two friends there with me, all saw the same thing. There is another report near Red Feather Lakes, BFR report number 26671. The two brothers witnessed Sasquatch at a cabin near Red Feather. A guy named John states, I visited my brother Howard in Boulder, Colorado on September 19th through September 26th. He has a cabin at Crystal Lakes near Red Feather. Elevation is about 8,500 feet. We were at this cabin on Sunday, but could not trout fish because of the snow for 2.5 days. Tuesday morning at about 7:30 a.m., I was standing at the front door of the cabin when I could see something black and walking upright heading for the aspen trees. I believe it was startled by a pickup truck coming down this small dirt road. I asked my brother to look at this with his field glasses, and I then looked at it for several minutes as well as with my brother. It looked to be about 7 to 8 feet tall. I estimate around 400 pounds. We went with a yardstick, which is all we had to try to at least measure the footprint. It measured 17 inches long and 6.5 inches wide. We were going to track it for a while, but the snow covered the tracks pretty good. There was a follow-up report by BFRO investigator J.W. I called and talked to John and Howard regarding their sighting of a large bipedal animal that they saw near Howard's cabin in the Crystal Lake Estates on September 22nd, 2009. Crystal Lakes Estates are located northwest of Fort Collins, Colorado at an elevation of 8,500 feet. At 7:30 on Tuesday, John was looking out the front door and saw a large upright black animal walking towards him from the north. It was walking southeast and crossed a dirt road and was on the opposite side of the North Fork of the Cache La Padre River from the Blackmon cabin. John thought that the animal had come out of the bushes that lined the river. After 30 seconds, John called his brother Howard over to the window to look at the animal. Just prior to John calling Howard to the window, a propane truck came down the main road and the animal turned its head towards the truck when it heard it. With wider strides, it moved away from the truck and uphill toward the small aspen grove. It continued to look over its shoulder at the truck while it moved away. For almost 2 minutes, Howard watched the large black animal moving across the white snow. Howard had a pair of 12 by 50 binoculars that he gave to John during the last minute before it disappeared in the aspen grove. Using the binoculars, John saw the animal's right side as it moved slightly uphill from John. John described the animal as walking like an upright human bipedal with short black hair that wasn't shaggy or long, 7 to 8 feet tall with a weight approximately 800 pounds, at least 3 feet wide at the shoulders that weren't humped but were bunched with the neck so it looked like it didn't have any neck at all, big chested, a narrow 2 foot wide waist, and a face like an orangutan. The animal had a big head with high forehead, but didn't have a point on the top, kind of like a gorilla. Its mouth was wide, and it had thin lips that weren't big or pronounced. Its upper cheeks were puffed, and it had a wide flat nose, not pointy like a human's nose. Its nostrils pointed down, kind of like a human's. It had no facial hair, but it did have hair on the bottom of its chin, although it was thin. Howard added that the animal had huge arms that hung low, almost to the knees, and the long arms were swinging when it was moving uphill. Howard guessed its weight at 450 to 500 pounds. Howard said that when he first saw it, it was walking with big strides, and they were as smooth as they could be. The animal wasn't in a hurry. It wasn't running. Now heavily snowing, Howard and John drove to the area above the aspen grove. Howard and John discussed tracking the animal, but didn't know what they would do if they caught up to it. We wouldn't shoot it. It looked too human. John walked down the hill, through the open grove, to the road. John found one good footprint in the grove. It was 16 to 17 inches long and 6.5 inches wide, with 5 toes. John said that the stride length increased after it saw the propane truck, and were about 6 to 7 feet apart. No pictures of this incident were taken. RMSO responds. A lot of the depictions of Gigantopithecus, they give it an orangutan face, makes you wonder if there's some kind of a connection there. I don't know, just speculating. Colorado boasts the most Bigfoot sightings reported in the Rocky Mountains of North America, perhaps because the creature is a ridge walker. That's what a lot of natives call it. It likes the high elevations, and in the lower 48, Colorado has some of the highest elevation mountains in the Rockies. This is a Bigfoot sighting hotspot report area. We receive a lot of reports from the area, and so do other Bigfoot investigation groups. Beautiful, colorful Colorado. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatching.